Hi everybody, it's Miss J here, and I'm back to introduce a new schooling series that I'm going to do called High School Planning. I'm going to go bit by bit in the process, giving you blog by blog and correspondingly vlog by vlog as we plan out the high school years. So the first thing that I want to discuss in this video is blog then vlog. For each vlog that I upload here on YouTube, I will add in the description box the corresponding blog. The blog should be read first, and then you'll come here to watch the video. So if you just so happen to catch this video being on YouTube today and you have not read the blog that corresponds with it, pause, go read the blog, and then come back here. And in fact, the blog will route you to the blog so you can click the link live there. The second is I am going to speak to homeschoolers and non-homeschoolers simultaneously. So keep up with me as I go in and out, move back and forth, and collect the information that is relevant to you. The third thing is there will be repetition or crossover information, not only from video to video, but from blog to vlog. Repetition is good for the learning, plus in the way that the content overlaps. I can't just leave it cliffhanging in one spot and pick right up in another spot. I have to overlap, so there'll be some repetition. If the redundancy bothers you, I apologize, but it's good for learning. Moving on. In my series, High School Planning, I am going to address different topics throughout that. So this video is called High School Planning Graduation Requirements, and the blog that corresponds with it is also called High School Planning Graduation Requirements. I leave off in the blog with a list of questions that both you and your students should be able to answer in the graduation requirement step of the high school planning at large. I'm going to read those questions now. The first is, how many credits does my state require in order for me to graduate? The second, how many credits does my school require in order for me to graduate? And if you read the blog post, you know the difference between a state requirement and school requirement. Sometimes they are exactly the same. Sometimes the school requires more, but at minimum, the school will always have exactly what the state has, but they could have more. And that's valuable to know in general, and then to know where does the school require more within the several components that make up the graduation requirement. And the blog discusses that. The third question is, does my school offer more than one graduation track? This is important because the track will determine how many credits a student needs to graduate and where they need to earn that credit at. Okay, so not all districts or schools have tracks, but if your school does, you'll want to know which ones they offer so that you can decide which one your student should be on. Sometimes, like in my case, we are still homeschooling. We're in the finale. I'll let you guys know when we finish. But for high school, we've chosen a school that gives me just as much flexibility and input the way that I would have wanted to if we had continued homeschooling. And so we are transitioning into a non-homeschooling space, which is why I'm going to talk to both my homeschoolers and my non-homeschoolers. I've built up quite a homeschooling audience. However, in my career, I have served non-homeschoolers, traditional students as well, and I've done all types of schooling, whether it's been public school, private school, hybrid, night, independent, day, etc. So I'm going to use my experience both personally as a homeschooler, professionally as an educator to speak to both groups. So in our case, the school is a college prep school. So that is the only track. By being a student at this school, you are a college prep student. And so it's the same requirement for all students because there is one track for the entire school. So it's good to know that. Okay, the next is how many subject categories are there for graduation? How many subject categories are there for graduation? I'm going to turn the camera around here soon and give you more detail on that. The next question is, how many community service hours does my student need or do I need to graduate? I try to write these questions in the voice of the student. So how many community hours do I need to graduate? Not every state district school will require community service, but it's getting pretty popular in high school now where most require a certain amount of hours. And so you and your student need to know how many hours it's going to need to be completed in order to graduate. And then last, what's the difference between core, specific, and elective courses? You're going to hear core and elective a lot. That language is not mine. Specific courses, though, maybe I coined that term. It is my way of differentiating core content from elective content. It's all required. So I don't want to isolate one of these categories by saying required because all three are required. Students have to earn a certain amount of Carnegie units or credit, or CU, which is the abbreviated of Carnegie unit. Students have to earn a certain amount of Carnegie units in each of those areas. Core, specific, elective, they're all required. So sometimes people will say, oh, well, they will speak about an elective course as if it's not a required course. And well, you have to have so many electives to graduate. It is required. So they're all required, but there are different categories. So at large, those categories will be core, specific, which is probably my own language, again, to differentiate, and elective. And when I turn the camera around, I will explain that as well. So I'll be right back to help you answer the questions that I listed for you here in this video and to explain some of the language that I used in them and to show you how you go about finding the information that you need in order to answer the questions. I'm back and I have the screen focused on the academic graduation requirements for DC, as that's where we're located. You will complete the same step for the state that you live in, educating your child in. You can find the graduation requirements either on the district's website or the Department of Education's website for your state. If you would like to look at the school's graduation requirements, and I will do that in a minute, you will just go to the school website. So if you are a non-homeschooler and your student is going to such and such high school, go to that school's website to look at those graduation requirements. If you are a homeschooler and you have a shadow school, and I explained that in the blog post, you do the same thing. You're not as bound to it as a non-homeschooler is, but you can look at it for a template to help guide you as you create your own. So assuming you found that and you're here, it is normally listed as a chart like so. So the first question that your student should be able to answer for him or herself, and you should be able to answer as well as the parent or guardian of their education: how many credits does my state require for graduation? So for me, I'm looking at that total box, 24 credits. DC requires every student who would like to graduate with a diploma 24 credits to graduate, okay? You can also ask that question, how many credits does my school require for me to graduate? And I'm going to turn there now. Give me 1 second to adjust the camera for that screen. I'm back, and what you see focused on the camera are the school requirements for high school graduation. I went ahead and put the Carnegie unit in red as a differentiator. The only difference is that my school requires one additional CU or one additional credit in world language. I believe I explained on the blog, but this is valuable because schools can require more than the state, and you should be aware of that. You should also know in which subject category do they require more. Sometimes there's more than one. In this case, it's just one for us because it helps you identify what the school values. In my case, I can easily compare, and world language matters just a little bit more to my school than my state. And I know that if I send my student to this school, which I am, he's going to be required to learn an additional unit of world language. And so you'll want to take yourself through that process. And so by now, you and your students should be able to answer how many credits does my state require for graduation and how many credits does my school or homeschool require for graduation. So homeschoolers, if you have a shadow school or you're just looking at the requirements for your state, but you want to add more, do so, and your student needs to understand that. I know that the state of Illinois or the state of Georgia, these are being used as examples, only requires 2 units, but as your mother or your father or your guardian who is educating you here at home, we're going to require 3 units or 4, etc. So you build your graduation requirements. You may need to look at your state as a template so that you are making sure you're getting the minimum in. You may be looking at your shadow school because you really admire that school's program and you want to mock that or mimic that in some way at home, but feel free to adjust according to your expectations for your high school student. The next question, does my school offer more than one graduation track? If so, which do I prefer? I already addressed that, but just to give a little bit more insight, most schools have a vocational track or a college bound or college prep track. I've seen a few others, but those are the most popular. You'll want to know that vocational typically is for a student who's going to, doesn't have an initial plan to attend a 4-year college. So maybe they're going into the workforce or the military or just to a junior college at first. And a college bound or a college prep track sounds exactly like what it is. The student is intending to enroll into a 4-year university upon high school graduation. The next question is, how many subject categories are there for graduation? And give me 1 second and I'll affix the screen to another chart in order to explain that to you. I'm back, and this is the same chart that I use for answering the question, how many credits does my school require for me to graduate? If you are a homeschooler, you'll want to create a chart and include this information. If you're grabbing it from a school or a state website, it's typically already charted and you can just copy and paste it. So in the blog, I talk about giving your student highlighters that color codes correspondingly to the subject categories and allowing him to mark that up so that he can understand the different types of subject categories. So I'm going to explain the difference between a core, a specific, and an elective course, and then how I color code. So you can use whatever colors you want. We don't actually use these colors when it comes to highlighting. I use these colors because they were computer friendly. So make the adjustments as necessary. But 6 different highlighter colors for me, that may end up being 4. It could be anywhere between 4 to, I believe, 7 for you, just depending on how that's broken up for your requirements. So let me explain so you can transfer that. So a core course for us is in green. So I'm going to give you the color coding system first. Let me back up. I'm sorry. So the core courses are in green. The world language is blue. The art is red. The music is purple. The health and PE is orange. The electives are gray. So a core course is always going to be your English, math, science, and history. So in the blog, I explain that I don't teach them to split that out yet. So it's all coming together as one. So any English, any math, any science, any history, they are going to identify in whatever color you've chosen for core. They need to understand all 4 courses are core courses, which means they're general education courses. Most states have 3 to 4 units of each, and lots of them have 4. And so they need to understand it's a core course, and so I'm going to see it every single year. Freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year, with the exception of sometimes science and history are 3, state pending. But they're going to see these courses the most. They are core. The next, world language. Most states have this. Sometimes it's called foreign language. DC is a little bit more diversity and equitable friendly. So they've used the world language. Make that be a color. Art and music is split in DC. I've seen it be together in different states. So just color code based on the categorization. So we have one for art, one for music, another for health and PE, and then another for electives. So what I talk about in the blog is being able to differentiate. So core, green. A specific course are all of the courses that you see here, all the subject categories that you see here after core and before elective. So the specific courses are the world language, the art, the music, and the health and PE courses, okay, which is different from the elective. So core course, you see in green. Specific course are the courses in blue, red, purple, and orange that are separate from electives, and then you have electives. So elective courses, even though they're still required, obviously you see here, the student needs 3.5 in order to graduate. It's any course they want. And the specific courses are courses, pretty much any course that you want to take within this specification. So any world language, but it has to be a world language. Any art, but it has to be an art. Any music, but it has to be a music. And then health and PE, for the most part, is already decided. There's PE1, PE2, and then health. However, some states have a little range where they have a list of physical education courses and they can choose which type of PE they want. So specific courses are courses where they can decide within the course specification, okay? And so what's the difference between a core, specific, and elective? I just answered that. And they should know how many subject categories they have. For us, this is 6. These together as 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now you can answer all those questions and you know the difference between a core, specific, and elective course. Also in the blog, I discuss how to access a course catalog. And in this case, because there's levels to this, so in this case, when you download that course catalog or that course roster, you are giving it to your student. If you have a fancy iPad and you can write and highlight, mark it up as so on the document in the iPad, then this can be a digital experience. If you don't have that type of technology, it's best to print it and you'll have your student highlight. And at this point, you're gonna have them highlight using this color coding system that you created to make sure that they understand the courses that are required at large, and then they're going in and choosing what they would like where they have the range. They also have some range in even the core subjects. So they will walk themselves through that process. So they'll go to I'm using the example in science throughout the planning series. So I'll be consistent and stay with science. So they're gonna go to the science section. The courses are organized by subject. So they're gonna go to the science section and they're going to use their, in my case, green highlighter. And they're going to highlight the 4 courses that they need or want because there's some range there. So in our case, he has to have a biology and then he has to have 3 lab sciences. So he's going to go through. Biology has to be highlighted green. He absolutely has to have it. Biology is also a lab science, so that already takes care of one of those. So now he needs 2 more sciences that are lab, and that can be any one he wants or any 2 that he wants. So he has to go find that. He's looking for the 2 courses that he wants while making sure it's lab. And then he can take any other course for the 4th unit. So that is what they are doing in this process. You have downloaded or printed a course catalog for them, and they are highlighting each area here: English, math, science, history, language, art, music, health, PE, and then their electives in the color code system, just based on interest. We will narrow it in as we go. For right now, it's just on interest. And I am going to move to another screen here on my computer to show you what that looks like. I'll be back. I'm back, and affixed to the screen is the core science. So I have printed off the roster and he has highlighted. Okay, so you see he has more than 4, which is fine. I recommend them choosing more than 4 because they're gonna have to make choices later in the process, and all of these will not stay. But this is just interest. What are you interested in based on the requirement? So let's review the requirement again for science as it relates to our school. And you do the same thing, just transfer the knowledge. So we know he needs 4 units, so he has to have at least 4 classes highlighted. We know that one of them has to be a biology, so biology has to be highlighted. Going to have to take it. We also know that 3 of those 4 units must be a lab science. In our case, biology is a lab science, and the school will allow for biology to overlap as a lab science. So after biology is taken care of, he just needs 2 more lab science because he gets 1 with bio, leaving the 4th unit to be what he likes. So he has highlighted biology, environmental science, physics, earth science, marine science, as well as forensic science. We have a notation with marine science that I will talk about a little bit more in video 2. So this is an example of what this will look like when you get done. And of course, you'll do this in all of them. So your core will be green or whatever that main color is you've chosen, and then you'll move out to your specific courses with that color coding, and then your elective courses with whatever color you've chosen for that. And so at the end of this process, you and your students should be able to answer all the questions that I listed in this video, and they're also bulleted out in the blog post. You should have a highlighted list of all interested courses within the graduation requirement. And then you should understand course frequency. So in the blog, I encourage parents to ask the school what the course frequency is. So for example, forensic science, it's not a required course in any of the programs, which means it is probably not going to be offered every semester. So because my child has it highlighted as a science of interest, I'm going to contact the school and ask about course frequency. How often is forensic science taught at this school? Some courses, especially elective courses, and even a few specific courses, are not going to be taught every semester. Sometimes they're not even taught every year. And so I need to understand what that course frequency looks like. This is something that I take on for myself. I just call the school and ask, and then I communicate it to my student because I'm expecting, as he highlights and makes these decisions, to be able to filter with that information in mind. Thank you for reading and watching. If you followed the sequence that I asked, I have created a worksheet for your student and a checklist for you to complete for this stage in the process. It'll help you stay organized with the process and to make sure you haven't, left a gap or a hole throughout the process as well. So if you look in the description box, I will include a link again to the blog that corresponds, and hopefully you read that first. And I will also include a freebie worksheet for your student and a freebie checklist for you as my thank you for both reading and watching and supporting my blog and my channel. I appreciate you. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, and until next time, peace.